better part of 30 years. So it's some great experience to see what it was before, to definitely a game changer for legacy dollars coming into the region.
Okay. I'm Heidi Jube, and I'm a local artist here in Little Falls, and I'm not representing any specific organization at this time, but I would definitely say that I've grown through the Legacy Amendment from arts job to the ability to be an independent artist.
Great. I'm Vicki Chipolis, and I am a colleague of Mark's at Five Wings Arts Council. My job is grants and program coordinator. And I also, with my husband, have a place in Wagina called Green Island, which has been the recipient of Legacy Dollars. And my husband is an artist as well. And so he too has been the recipient of Legacy Dollars. So I see the impact really personally, but through my job I see it in literally every nook and cranny and little forest hut of Region 5.
I think that one's on. Yep.
I didn't think you actually wanted me to talk. I'm here in a couple capacities. The capacity that I'm invited for here is State Representative Prt1 from the Little Falls area, cover Morrison County and into Todd County. Long Prairie is my area as well. I have been at the state legislature, this will be my 4th term, and have worked extensively on a number of things, including the legacy and the arts. Have gotten to know Larry Redmond very well, who's been a good confidant and advisor down there. Basically, when I do dumb things, I get a phone call. So I want to talk about in that capacity. I am very familiar with the arts. I'm a former educator, and am very familiar with the impact the arts has on our student development and our kids and our communities as well. Have supported the St. Francis Center, have supported the Great River Arts, have been involved with many, many things, I've been very fortunate. My kids are very musically inclined. They get that from their mother. But in all of that, watching the impact, and then I want to flip to the other side of me. The other side of me in my mortgage paying world is I do economic development. And the reason I bring that up is because I talk a lot about workforce development, workforce attraction, and the millennials that we see now that are actually moving forward, taking over the baby boomers as far as population. And we see this workforce coming in, and I work with lots of communities that are trying to figure out how they attract this new workforce. And when we advise them, we talk to them, one of the things that we go right to is the philanthropic organizations, volunteering, and the arts, because and I have kids that are right in there. If you know anything about this next generation, these workers, this is very important to them. It's very important to them that they can be involved in communities. It's very important that they have outlets. And what we do in the arts and the legacy directly ties to how we attract businesses and workforce development into communities, as well as bringing the diversity of the populations that we have together. So I'm very fortunate that I get to talk to lots of community developers across the country and we get to talk about this. I'm also very fortunate because I can take that background into my legislative world, and sometimes I have to reach beyond the spreadsheets to folks that I work with down there to say, okay, you're just looking at this from how this is going to impact the state dollars, and the general fund and legacy. Let's talk about how this is going to impact the growth of communities, schools, and those kids for years to come, because there's always the intangibles that comes behind the spreadsheet formula. So that's a little bit of my breadth. So hopefully I can answer questions as we go along.
Super. We have a few questions here to lead off with, but you don't have to answer all of them. You can answer those that speak to you and you have some interest in responding to. So we don't have to be so formal. Just grab the mic and talk whenever you feel inclined. So what, from your perspective, has been the biggest change in the region over the last 10 years due to the legacy investments in this area?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just sheer volume of activity that's going on. I mean, 10 years ago, prior to legacy, it's funny. I was thinking about this, and we used to in the office kind of clip out. We had this newspaper clipping service type of deal, clipping out anything that either was arts and cultural related activities or things that we funded, and we thought it was valuable. We were excited that we had, just have a few a month type of thing. And now we stopped doing that service. It's just overwhelming. And we started doing it right at the beginning of the legacy stuff, and it was just stacks and stacks and stacks. And that's old school newspaper clippings, not let alone the social media stuff and just the stuff we all know that's going on in the region. So just the sheer volume and stuff, and the diversity of different types of activity, the type of access people have to participate in different ways, not just a button in a seat type of thing, but if they really want to be hands-on with things, just participate in a variety of ways. Number-wise, I'm an administrator, so I always fall back to that. Prior to legacy stuff, our organization would fund anywhere from low 20s to $2,500 project grants in a year. When legacy came along, it immediately went to $60,000 to $75,000 was just the grant that we would give out for a certain project. So it's not only the volume, but the scale of things increased, which also scaled up the impact of stuff and the amount of people that were being served.
I think one of the other things that I really noticed is that concurrent to the legacy amendment, and I don't think this was a big master plan, but we saw nationally the Art Place and Our Town initiatives where there was a real focus to change the paradigm of how arts worked in community. And although I think a lot of major metropolitan areas and major organizations started seeing the benefit of that early on, there wasn't a mechanism in place or even an understanding of how that would work back in the 2010, 11, 12, that sort of thing. But thanks to the legacy amendment, we were able to do a lot of training and a lot of awareness building within the arts community, within the artist community, and also within the non-arts community, particularly within city planning offices and economic development offices. And gradually, all of a sudden, we started getting calls going, can you turn me on to who could help with this, from city planners, from city administrators, from Little Falls is a great example. This big project that's happening here in Little Falls now is being supported with arts activities to attract people downtown, all on the idea of sort of making sure that these businesses stay intact and financially solvent during this time that they could really be facing some challenges. That art-based community development has even been reflected in our own granting. We started with a pilot program, now we do art-based community development, modeled much after the Art Child program that requires partnerships. So that's collaboration and how communities work together. I think that's really a deeper impact. It was coincidental by seeing these models at the national level, but thanks to having legacy dollars, we were able to ascribe them to different communities and work on that concept within our region.
I'll just add quickly, one of the things the legacy does in rural Minnesota is it really becomes a fertilizer for what we have. I watch all the programs that we have, and we have very talented people, like many communities do. But those folks have an opportunity, and I use fertilizer appropriately, they have an opportunity to grow. They have an opportunity to sprout themselves in a way that if those opportunities weren't there, they would either go seek them somewhere else or they would just not develop those. And I'm just amazed, frankly, at all the events that I'll be to, whether I'm attending something down in the St. Cloud, the choirs that my daughters are in, or some of the other things up here, and somebody will stand up and say, hey, I want to acknowledge and thank the legacy funds were funded by this. But seeing how those tentacles reach into all these things that these kids are involved with, we wouldn't have many of the opportunities that we have here in this region, and specifically in Little Falls, if we didn't have that. If you can come up here, and I'm not sure when it is, but I think we're on the 10th anniversary of the Park concert, which is a phenomenal concert. We may still have that because of the generosity of some of the musicians, but I'm not entirely sure we would, because a lot of that has come through folks that have been in the St. Francis Center. They've worked with, you just look at the huge presence that will be on that stage. I can point out by watching up there, oh yeah, she uses legacy. He's part of the program, he instructs with it. And you can just see how that touches everything And I think it amplifies what we have here. I think that the best thing I would do is these dollars just amplify the incredible arts and talent we have. I think Heidi sent me about an email a week. I see my email about all the things that she's doing, and she's been supporting a lot. But it's visible, and I can attest to these things wouldn't be here. These events would not be here without these opportunities that have come through this program.
I'll add a little onto that because I think that so I graduated from my undergrad in studio art in 1999, okay? I got my first McKnight grant in 2007. So there's an 8-year span there that I was having at least 2/3 of my children and engaging as much as I possibly can in this career that I chose, and I live in a community that I wasn't sure where I fit. I didn't know what kind of artist I really was, because if anybody knows, art school kind of teaches you the basics, but you need like this, we'll call it the gap years of where you're trying to find your voice. And if I didn't have, whether it was McKnight funding and or experiences through the legacy funds directly, where I engage with artists of different backgrounds and different experiences and different goals, I don't think I would have been able to feel confident, not only in my own art form, but in my own community, where I didn't see this art on the wall, that I make similar types of abstract work. I didn't see that on a regular basis. I only saw it in the cities. So the draw to pull me back to the urban center was really very strong, but now the draw to stay put and represent this place that I've chosen has been even stronger because of that legacy funding. So I have much gratitude for that. And thank you for reading my emails. Makes me feel really special.
I'm not a typical politician.
And I'd like to say, from the Long Prairie Chamber Orchestra, we read all the testimonials from the people that have come to the concert. And one of the things I've heard over and over again is, wow, you have this in Long Prairie. You have a chamber orchestra in Long Prairie. And comparing it's a 45-year-old chamber orchestra. And it started in someone's little dining room. And now it's grown into, it goes to the high school, and we have about 150 to 200, 300 people come to the concerts. And so it's grown a lot, and people can actually stay home for a New Year's Eve concert instead of going to the cities for a New Year's Eve concert. We also have, the Staples Men's Choir. It gives the men the ability to sing. You have high school, you have elementary, you have high school, you have college possibilities, but then there's this gap in between. Where do you go as an adult in your community to sing? And they get together, and the camaraderie is amazing. They have 65 to 70 people singing together. And the Legacy Amendment has given us the support, sort of like the buttresses on a church, just keeping us together. We have the body of the church, which is the art and the talent, and then just those supports on the side. And I don't think you sometimes giving us the, yes, we can do something in our town because we do have this extra support. So
I just want to add to that. There's a thought there, and I hear this all the time. And when it comes to arts, many small towns that I've been through, there's this, as Heidi said, there's this pull to the urban area. I'm going to go down to St. Cloud and see this, or I'm going to go to the cities and experience that. That's great. The problem with that is, and what you just heard from Long Prairie is, once we do that, we remove community. Because the real value of arts and legacy is not that I have a great performer, I have wonderful art. It's the fact that I get to go to the park and I get to talk to my neighbors, who might not be the same color as me, who might not speak exactly the way I do, but I get to talk to them on an even footing where I no longer feel threatened. And I think that we can benefit from that in rural Minnesota so much, is inviting the new community members in and realizing that, oh, you like arts too. Oh, you enjoy good music. And the next thing you know, the next conversation that transcends from that. We just don't have enough of that. And I think we lose so much when those that have the ability to go to an urban area and experience the arts can't just go to the concert at the park, or can't just go to the chamber in Long Prairie and go, you know what, you're my neighbor. And if we had more of that, and I think we'd have less of some of the other things that we see popping up around.
And I can just add to that, that's one of the trends that I've seen in the last, well, it has been, actually, it did start before Legacy, but the Legacy really fertilized it, we'll use Ron's analogy there, is that the trend is not to bring in outside art into the area, not to bring, you know, a canned performance from somewhere in and have kind of a one-way entertainment type experience. It's really community engaged, and people are producing their own work. It's the Staples Area Men's Chorus who get together and sing and create their own music. They even have scores written just for them. So it really brings those folks together, and it is a community type of thing. And if there is anything that's brought in, for the most part, it is like those community park, music in the park, for lack of a better word, and those are community engagement activities for sure. I think of the one, not only here in Falls, but the one in Monaga comes to mind, where it is, you know, the Boy Scouts are on garbage patrol, the Lions are there to help people with mobility issues, the lumberyard employees are in charge of setting up and taking down, and the VFW uses their parking lot, and it is the whole community comes together for that experience, and it's just like Ron said, people are getting to know each other better, and that's the value of the arts.
The more you quote me, the more I'll vote for your issue.
I think the next two questions are, can be sort of put together. What if the dollars allowed you to do that you couldn't have done otherwise, and what do you think personally has been the best thing about the legacy investment for you and your region?
Okay. So I had to kind of look at all of the different things that were touched by Legacy that I might have not participated in if there wasn't a way for me to support my family. And one of the biggest things that I think is really important is the ability to support schools and bringing in resident artists. I am a teaching artist on several rosters, including Compass, VSA Minnesota, Lifetime Arts out of New York. And then I was a part of the Central Minnesota Arts Board roster program until I moved back home. And so the ability to go into schools, and actually what it felt like at first was me plopping in. Because the buy-in on the administrative side was, we have 1 week, one artist, doing one thing, this is the product at the end, ta-da, we did a good job, pat ourselves on the back and get out. Well, sometimes it can be like that. I hated that part, so I was quick to try to shimmy it in a different direction where it was more engaging. And so I was able to go into schools and do projects, but then I was able to see needs in that community. I've now, after 15 years of teaching in the schools, I have realized that this is place-based activities. Those are trends that you're seeing that are like happening out in a sculpture garden at the Walker. But this school is the only theater in that town. This place and that school is a group of 500 kids and their administrators, their teachers and everything like that, and indirectly their parents and grandparents that we're having impact with. And I know hundreds of artists who are impacted by that opportunity as well. So it is sort of a domino effect of what it's turned into for me, but I've grown a lot from plopping in, parachuting into a school and getting out, to actually parachuting into a community and wanting to stay just a little longer so I can meet more people, to understand their story and use that story in some way, shape, or form, or help them tell that story. So that's like 15 years of growth on my end. Whether it's been financially supported or not, I'm blessed to have been able to do that. It has been financially supported though, so then therefore, you know, my family, my home is also taken care of.
When we were talking about the artists coming in, and in Long Prairie we've had that at the high school. They had 5 resident art. They hosted 5 artists in the choir program, and 3 of them actually were in the classroom, and then 2 of them were video calls from was it Ethiopia and from Nepal, yes, from Nepal. So amazing enrichment, and the kids, I heard them sing for the concert. They are inspired, and they are learning new music, and they're just stepping out of just their classroom for 5 days or for 5 weeks, whatever the program offered. Then we had a mosaic artist come in, and yes, she's coming in from someplace else, but she is working with the high school students to put a mosaic together, and then the elementary school students for a week. And then she went into the senior center and went into the library, and then she had a Girl Scout who was going for her Gold Award, and she actually raised the other half of the amount of grant funding that we needed for the Five Wings Arts Council. So it touched so many people in our community, and without the funding we wouldn't have been able to do that. Then the mural artist just recently put his mural up. He came from Mexico, and why Mexico? Because 63% of our kindergarten class is Hispanic right now.
Wow.
And so in the next 5 years, the 5 years before that, so 5th grade, it's up to 50%, so 50 to 60%. And in our community, it's 38, 39%. So he came in and he had 3 interns helping him there who were Hispanic, and 3 that were Anglo or from the area. And he inspired them. We had a christening at Lake Charlotte, and you can all come and look at it. We put it up, the Public Works help, like you were saying, Public Works help came in, the police department, and then I was taking photos, and one guy said, "Look, Kevin Langer, the police department, he's doing something, you better take a picture of this." Picture of Kevin. And then my kids painted the edges of the thing, because he had to get the edges painted. And so, and then there's one young girl that's from the high school. She was my intern now, in college, of course, and she is art educator, and now he inspired her to do her own murals for Lake Charlotte, because there are a couple more walls on the Lake Charlotte building. And there's another young man that loves it, but he needs the intern to help him kick him in the butt, because he's always very like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do it." And then, so she